Welcome back to another episode of the Weekend Woo. We've got what I feel is an extremely fascinating and intriguing topic for you tonight. Before we get started though, I'd like to ask everyone that hasn't already, please visit Rachel's channel, Into the Veil. If you'd like to know an amazing secret, click on the link in the description box below. So let's jump right in. In 2014, it was a beautiful June afternoon in Brown County, Indiana. Megan was anxiously waiting outside the church for the other members of the wedding party to arrive. It was their last rehearsal before the official ceremony would take place in just 2 more days. She and Justin had been planning all of this for the last 6 months, ever since he proposed to her on Christmas Eve. Everything was perfect and ready to go. The church, Pastor Stephen, the reception hall, caterers, flowers, the photographer, all of the decorations, invitations, just so many things, not to mention her dress, the bridesmaid gowns, the rings, everything was falling into place. Two more days and she and Justin would have their dream wedding, and then off to Florida to board a cruise ship. The evening rehearsal came and went with military precision. All was perfect in Megan's world, and she was on cloud 9 as she departed the church after spending a few minutes in private with her soon-to-be. As typical for June in the Midwest, evening showers were a normal occurrence, and she didn't give it any thought as she climbed into her Honda and drove away. Her thoughts were consumed by last-minute little details as she made her way down the hilly, winding road back to Mom and Dad's house. So consumed, in fact, that she never noticed the 5 deer standing in the grass at the edge of the road. She slammed on her brakes as the first 2 ran out, turning the wheel out of instinct and immediately sending the car into a spin on the wet pavement. A few brief moments that seemed like eternity. It finally ended as the car rolled over twice and came to rest 80 yards away against 2 very large hickory trees. When the first deputy arrived at the scene, he knew it was really bad. The emergency rescue had to use the jaws of life to remove her from the vehicle and airlift her to the hospital. She was unresponsive, with severe head injuries and several broken bones, and blood, so much blood. For the first several days after the crash, she was on life support, but eventually it was removed as she began to stabilize. She lay motionless in a coma for the next 2 months. As the nurse came in to do rounds on one Tuesday morning, much to her shock and surprise was Megan, laying there with her eyes wide open and asking for water. That's when the real nightmare began. Now, any rational person would completely expect that someone who had just gone through this type of ordeal would be extremely confused, probably suffering amnesia or a lack of motor skills due to so much injury. I guess that's why it was so bizarre and perplexing when her family and fiancé arrived that she greeted each of them by name, but even more so in the manner that she did it. It was not like greeting loved ones, but in a casual, matter-of-fact, dry sort of way, like you would greet a casual acquaintance or a co-worker. As other friends and familiar faces gathered around to see the miracle, she became withdrawn and quiet, as if this was all some gathering of complete strangers. An amazing 5 days later, she was released to her parents' care, and it didn't take long to start noticing the subtle and the not-so-subtle differences. Within a few more days, she refrained from calling them Mom and Dad and started using their given names of James and Susan. Her once favorite dishes of chicken and dumplings or sugar cream pie now seemed rather repulsive. Now she preferred only fresh vegetables, fruit, and occasionally tuna, plain. Within 2 more weeks, she woke up one morning and asked where all of her clothes and furniture were at. She insisted that somebody must have taken them and left a bunch of raggedy farm clothes in their place. She also refused any calls or visits from Justin and treated him like a complete stranger. If that wasn't bizarre enough, she gathered various leftover paints from the shed and began painting these beautiful landscapes and other scenes, something she had never had the talent for any time before in her life. And then one morning a few days later, James and Susan woke up to find a note at the kitchen table in handwriting that wasn't familiar to them. It said, "Thank you for your hospitality, but I need to find my family now. Signed, Elizabeth." No one has heard from her since. The second story is about a man named Anthony. He was an owner and manager of a medium-sized landscaping company in Ohio. He had built it up from the ground, spending countless hours and resources developing his customer base and a solid reputation. It was a daily struggle trying to keep workers on track, keeping orders and materials going to their proper locations, vehicle maintenance, insurance issues, customer complaints when they came, all of the other headaches that come with running a business. After what seemed like a never-ending week of challenges and issues, Anthony had been up for 3 days straight, trying to keep all of the loose ends and projects held together. When 2 of his employees did a no-call, no-show for a job that was already 5 days behind, Anthony, exhausted and completely stressed out, went to finish the job himself. It was 12:15 p.m. when the homeowner stopped by on her way from lunch and found Anthony passed out over a stack of grass squares in the backyard. Exhaustion, dehydration, and heat stroke were the diagnosis at the ER. When Anthony came to and began to communicate, he had no remembrance of who he was, where he was, or any other traces of his life. Anthony ceased to exist at that point, and a complete stranger took over. Anthony's home, his company, and all of his possessions were sold in a record amount of time at a discount rate. The last time any of his former friends or family saw him, he was on his way to buy a sailboat. So let's talk about the phenomena called walk-ins. There seems to be a general consensus amongst experts that when the spirit leaves the body, that is considered the real time of death. There's also general agreement that in total brain dead cases, the spirit or soul is usually out of the body, connected by a thin, ethereal cord. Often the brain-dead person's spirit stays with the body until life support is turned off. But that's assuming the life support is switched off within a reasonable period of time. There's the case of Sam Nelson's father, who was kept on life support for 12 days, even after the hospital had officially declared him dead, after all of their efforts to resuscitate from a major heart attack. Many of Nelson's relatives were convinced that the hospital, a reputed one, which had declared him dead, couldn't have been wrong, and his spirit had actually left while his body was kept alive on support. One of the relatives made a seemingly peculiar comment. "We were lucky that in the 12 days his body was kept alive, some wandering spirit didn't enter in." Recognizing that it was somebody else's spirit and getting rid of it would have compounded our tragedy even more. A very strange statement indeed. But is it possible for a wandering spirit to enter a dead body so that the body comes back to life again? Yes, it is. Often such a phenomena is termed a walk-in. According to Wikipedia, a walk-in is a concept of a person whose original soul has departed from his or her body and has been replaced with a new one, and sometimes with a generally more advanced one. Believers maintain that it is possible for the original soul of a human to leave a person's body and for another soul to walk in. Souls are said to walk in during a period of extreme personal problems or because of an accident or trauma. The new individual may retain the memories of the original personality for a time, but the personality and abilities often change quickly. Incarnating into a fully grown body allows a more advanced soul to carry out its mission without having to go through 2 decades of maturing that people typically need to reach adulthood. This is often described as a New Age concept, but numerous stories that I have heard over the years involving remote areas, unexposed to television or media or any kind of outside influence, have made it evident that it is a paranormal occurrence that is very old and fairly widespread. Even in relatively recent times, back in 1941, there was a film called Here Comes Mr. Jordan. It wove its plot around a spirit entering a newly dead corpse. This film, in turn, was based on the play Heaven Can Wait, written in 1938. The 1978 movie remake also portrayed a soul replacing a recently deceased man's body. There are several types of walk-ins or soul exchanges. In her book, Walk-ins Among Us, Yvonne Perry has written about them. Sometimes the walk-in soul enters into an agreement with the walk-out soul. Rather than having a body die in order to release the soul from its incarnation, another soul agrees to come in and picks up where the previous one left off. A walk-in can also be a companion soul in spirit form, walking along with the embodied soul. A walk-in can be a fragmented aspect of your soul coming home and reuniting with the core essence in your body. Some walk-ins are a blend of soul essence or consciousness inhabiting one body simultaneously. These may rotate in and out of the driver's seat as needed to accomplish whatever task is at hand. So this theory might add new light to some of the cases involving people who are diagnosed with multiple personality disorder. A part of the soul's consciousness stays with the body for a short time after death, and using that, a new soul manages to use this open window to enter in. It isn't only dead bodies that spirits or souls can enter into. An exchange or entry of a spirit into a living body can take place when the body is sleeping, or unconscious, or in a drug state, also when they are under anesthesia, or in extreme emotional distress, a near-death experience, a suicide attempt, and so on. Also, more than one spirit can enter a body. Spiritually advanced souls can walk into adult bodies and bring new dimensions into play. In each case, there are clear indications that a new or different soul has entered the body, dead or alive. But that will be a subject of another video. We hope you enjoyed the topic tonight. Leave a comment, hit the like, share, and subscribe, and we will see you next time on the Weekend Woo.